As the weeks turned to months, Victor realized that his journey had taken on a new dimension. He was no longer just walking to escape his old life or to find himself. He was walking to connect, to inspire, to remind people of the joy and purpose that could be found in simplicity and community.
Welcome to Opportuno, Episode 61, Steps of Change. What if you could walk away from it all? Leave behind the rush, the noise, the never-ending pursuit of more? In this fictional story of hope and adventure, that's exactly what Victor dared to do, embarking on a journey to rediscover life and leaving behind the world he knew, for one filled with hope, meaning, and possibility. Now, on with the story. Steps of Change.
Steps of Change. Victor sat by his window, staring blankly at the cityscape outside. The gray buildings stretched endlessly, and the streets bustled with people rushing past each other. Yet, amidst all the activity, he felt an overwhelming emptiness. His life had become a routine of work, bills, and endless striving for material wealth, while everyone around him seemed to be playing the same game. It was a game where people were used, not appreciated, and where love was nothing more than a word spoken with no meaning. One evening, Victor found himself sitting in his dimly lit apartment, feeling despondent. He felt like a cog in a machine that only cared about how much he could produce, and how quickly he could do it. Love was transactional, friendships were conditional, and every day felt more like a chore than a gift. He longed for something different, something real and freeing. As he sat there, a realization began to form in his mind. The weight he had been carrying, the expectations, the material pursuits, the fear of the unknown was holding him back from truly living. He understood that life wasn't found in silver or gold, but in experiences and connections.
What if I just left?
He thought aloud.
What if I took nothing but the essentials, left behind this life, and walked wherever my feet would carry me?
The idea of it filled him with a mix of fear and excitement. Could he really walk away from everything he had known? Could he find something more meaningful? That night, Victor couldn't sleep. His mind was filled with thoughts of freedom, of finding his way in the world without the burden of possessions and societal expectations. He imagined feeling the sun on his face each morning, greeting each day with hope and wonder rather than dread and routine. Determined, Victor took his last bit of money and bought a sturdy backpack. He spent the next few days sorting through his belongings. Clothing, gadgets, souvenirs, all the things he had acquired over the years seemed suddenly meaningless. In the end, he kept only what he truly needed: a few clothes, a sleeping bag, small tent, a water bottle, cooking utensils, a notebook, and some basic tools. Everything else was sold, given away, or left behind. When his preparations were complete, his possessions fit neatly inside his backpack. As he packed, Victor reflected on the idea that true freedom comes from within, not from the things we own. He realized that by giving up his possessions, he was making room for new experiences and connections. Early one morning, before dawn, he put on his pack, took one last look at his apartment, and walked out the door, never looking back. The road ahead was unknown, but the freedom he felt was undeniable. It was as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. As he took his first steps into his new life, Victor felt a sense of peace wash over him, a feeling that he was finally on the right path. The city was just beginning to wake as Victor walked through the streets. With each step, he felt lighter, more alive. He reminded himself to trust in the journey, to have faith that each step would lead him where he needed to go. The journey that had started as a desperate escape was quickly becoming something more, a pilgrimage to rediscover himself and the world around him. As the sun rose, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, Victor reached the end of the city. He paused for a moment, gazing at the skyline that stretched out before him. Then, with a smile on his face and a newfound sense of purpose, Victor set off down the open road, ready to embrace whatever adventures lay ahead. Victor didn't know where this journey would lead him, but he was certain of one thing. He was finally free to find his way, to greet each day with openness and wonder, and to discover the joy that comes from living simply and kindly. With this realization, he took his first steps into a new life, where the possibilities were endless. He was determined to stay on a path, straight and narrow, and not worry about tomorrow. Victor walked for days, then weeks, passing through cities, forests, and open fields. He learned to navigate with the sun and stars, to appreciate the warmth of a campfire, and to find joy in the simplest things, a fresh breeze, a bird's song, the sound of water flowing in a nearby stream. With every step, he felt himself becoming lighter, not just in body but in spirit. As he traveled, Victor began to understand the profound wisdom in living simply. He discovered that by carrying less, he was able to experience more. The weight he had left behind wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. Without the burden of material possessions and societal expectations, he found himself more open to the world around him and the people he met. One evening, as he sat by a crackling campfire, a fellow traveler named Etta asked him,
"What made you start this journey, Victor?"
Victor smiled, his eyes reflecting the dancing flames.
I realized that life isn't found in the things we own or the status we achieve.
He replied.
I needed to let go of my fears and see what the world had in store for me.
Etta nodded, her eyes wide with understanding.
That's beautiful. It's like you're living the life many of us dream about but are too afraid to pursue.
In small towns and villages, he met people who welcomed him as he was, with no concern for his past or what he could offer them. He traded small favors and tasks for food or shelter when needed, but more often than not, he found people were simply willing to share what they had. In return, he shared stories of his journey, listened to theirs, and offered his help wherever he could. Victor's philosophy on life and the meaning behind his journey became clearer with each passing day. He came to understand that life's journey should be about trusting in something greater than yourself, not fretting about tomorrow, and realizing that each day is a gift, a chance to walk the path and feel the sun on your face. As Victor continued his journey, he found that his philosophy was not just for him anymore. It became a gift he could share with others, a reminder of the simple truths he was discovering. The ideas about setting your sights on something greater, living with kindness, and finding joy in the journey became a mantra not just for him, but for those he met along the way. In a busy market town, Victor encountered a group of street performers. Drawn by their music and the joy they spread, he joined them, sharing his stories and philosophy. As they performed together, a crowd gathered, captivated by the message of living lightly and finding joy in the journey. A young woman approached him after the performance.
Your words.
she said, her eyes bright with unshed tears.
They're exactly what I needed to hear today. I've been so caught up in my worries, I forgot to look for the beauty around me.
Victor smiled warmly.
Remember, each step we take can light the way to brighter skies and a brand new day.
He said, sharing the wisdom he had gained on his travels. As he prepared to leave the town the next morning, Victor realized that his journey had become more than just a personal quest. His way of life and the philosophy he had embraced was touching others, inspiring them to see the world differently. With gratitude for his many blessings and a spring in his step, he set off down the road once more, eager to discover where the path would lead him next. The gentle breeze uplifted his hopeful spirit as he walked, reflecting the transformative power of embracing simplicity and pursuing one's true desires. Victor knew that every step he took was not just part of his own journey, but an opportunity to spread a message of hope and renewal to all he encountered. With only the essentials on his back, Victor found a new kind of freedom. No longer worried about maintaining possessions or status, he began to focus on what truly mattered, the people around him and the experiences each day brought. His philosophy of living lightly and finding joy in simplicity began to shape not only his life but the lives of those he encountered. One sunny morning, Victor arrived at a small village nestled in a picturesque valley. As he walked down the main street, he noticed an elderly woman struggling with her overgrown garden. Without hesitation, he approached her.
Good morning, ma'am. Would you like some help with your garden?
Victor offered with a warm smile. The woman, introducing herself as Lillian, gratefully accepted. As they worked side by side, pulling weeds and pruning overgrown bushes, Victor shared his thoughts on finding freedom in simplicity.
Over the course of my journey,
He said, wiping sweat from his brow.
I've learned that the things we own don't really make us free. It's the connections we make and the kindness we share that truly enrich our lives.
Lillian nodded thoughtfully.
Young man, I've lived in this village for over 70 years. I've seen people come and go, always chasing after more. But the happiest folks I've known are those who've learned to be content with less.
As they continued to work, Victor shared more of his philosophy with Lillian. He spoke of giving with joy and helping others to see the beauty in simplicity. Lillian listened intently, her eyes twinkling with understanding. Later that week, Victor found himself helping a local farmer repair a broken fence. As they worked under the hot sun, the farmer, Jasper, opened up about his struggles.
I've been working myself to the bone,
Jasper confessed.
trying to expand the farm, buy more equipment, but it never seems to be enough.
Victor nodded sympathetically, then shared his thoughts on finding peace through giving and how joy grows as worries cease. The farmer listened, his weathered face softening as the words sank in.
It seems that
Jasper said after a moment of reflection.
maybe I've been looking at things all wrong. Perhaps it's not about having more, but about appreciating what I have.
Victor smiled, realizing once again how his message was touching others.
When we give, we often find our own peace.
He added, sharing the wisdom he'd gained on his journey. As days turned into weeks, Victor continued to help wherever he could. He sat with a lonely child, teaching him how to write simple words in the dirt with a stick. He assisted in the local community center, sharing stories of his travels and the wisdom he'd gained. Throughout it all, his philosophy of simplicity and kindness was a constant companion, a reminder of the path he'd chosen. He found that by living with less, he had more to give. And as he gave, he discovered that his own despair, which had once seemed so overwhelming, began to fade. One evening, as Victor sat by the village fountain, a group of locals gathered around him. They'd heard about the traveler with the inspiring message and wanted to hear more for themselves. As Victor began to share his thoughts on traveling light through life, finding one's way, and trusting in something greater than oneself, he saw the impact of his words reflected in the faces around him. Eyes closed in contemplation, heads nodded in agreement, and smiles spread as the message of simplicity and joy resonated with each listener. When he finished, there was a moment of profound silence before a young woman spoke up. Your words, it's like you've put into words what we've all been feeling but couldn't express. An older man chimed in.
It reminds me of the values our grandparents used to talk about. Finding richness in relationships and experiences rather than possessions.
As the group dispersed, Victor felt a deep sense of contentment. He realized that the gift of simplicity wasn't just for him, it was something he could share, a ripple that could spread far beyond his own journey. That night, as he lay under the stars, Victor reflected on how far he'd come. The love and gratitude of others had filled the void that material wealth had never been able to satisfy. His philosophy, once a personal mantra, had become a gift he could offer to the world. With gratitude for the experiences and people he had met along his journey, Victor drifted off to sleep, the gentle whisper of the wind carrying the promise of new adventures and more opportunities to spread his message of simplicity and peace. As Victor continued his journey, he began to notice a change in the people he met. His philosophy of simplicity and his way of life were having an impact that extended far beyond his brief encounters. In the towns where he stayed for longer periods, others began to reflect on their own lives, inspired by the simplicity and joy Victor embodied. One such town was Millbrook, an active community known for its competitive business environment. Victor arrived on a busy weekday, the streets filled with people rushing to and fro. As he walked down the main street, he noticed a small bookshop with a "Help Wanted" sign in the window. The owner, a stressed-looking man named Earl, hired Victor on the spot. As they worked together over the next few days, Victor shared his philosophy through casual conversation, speaking of traveling light through life and finding peace in simplicity. One evening, as they were closing up shop, Earl confided in Victor.
My friend, I've been running this store for 20 years, always pushing to compete with the big chains. But listening to your ideas, I'm starting to wonder if I've been missing the point.
Victor nodded encouragingly, and Earl continued.
Maybe it's not about making the most money or having the biggest store. Maybe it's about creating a space where people can find joy in books, in stories.
Over the next few weeks, Earl began to implement changes. He started hosting community reading events and created a cozy corner where customers could sit and read. The bookshop became less about sales targets and more about fostering a love for literature. As word spread about the bookshop's transformation, Victor noticed other changes in the town. A young artist he met, Cora, had been struggling to find her voice, constantly comparing her work to what was trending in the big cities. After hearing Victor's thoughts about setting your eyes on something greater and living with kindness and love, Cora found new inspiration. She began painting the world around her, the local landscapes, the faces of townspeople, rather than copying the trends dictated by the city.
Your words made me realize that true art comes from authenticity.
Cora told Victor one day as they sat in the park, her easel set up before her.
The less I carry of others' expectations, the more I find joy in my own journey.
Even the local diner owner, a man known for his gruff demeanor and long working hours, was affected by the ripple of change. After a conversation with Victor about trusting in a higher power and not fretting about tomorrow, he decided to close the diner early on Sundays to spend time with his family.
I've been so focused on providing for them financially.
He admitted to Victor over a cup of coffee.
That, even though I was physically present, I wasn't truly 100% engaged, mentally, emotionally, and lovingly, as I should have been.
As Victor prepared to leave Millbrook, he was amazed at the transformations he had witnessed. His journey was simple, yet profound. It reminded people of the joy found in giving, the peace in living minimally, and the importance of kindness over wealth. On his last evening in town, the community organized a gathering in the park. As Victor stood before the crowd, he saw faces filled with hope and renewed purpose. He shared his thoughts on traveling light, finding one's way, and trusting in something greater than oneself. As his words floated through the air, Victor saw Earl, the bookshop owner, with his arm around his wife, looking more relaxed than ever. Cora stood at her easel, capturing the scene with confident brushstrokes. The diner owner sat on a blanket, surrounded by his children, a contented smile on his face. Victor's unwavering dedication to helping others and living simply had become a living example of compassion in action, inspiring everyone around him to embrace generosity and empathy. He had shared stories and laughter, and now, as he prepared to leave, he knew he was leaving behind a sense of warmth and a reminder that life could be more than just a race for money. As the gathering came to an end, a profound silence fell over the crowd. Then, slowly, people began to talk, sharing their own stories of change and renewal. Victor listened joyously, knowing that the ripple effect of his journey and philosophy would continue long after he had moved on. The next morning, as Victor shouldered his backpack and prepared to hit the road again, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had come to realize that his journey was not just about his own transformation, but about the positive change he could inspire in others. With a smile on his face and new insights forming in his mind, he set off down the road, eager to see where the path would lead him next. As Victor continued his journey, he found himself reflecting on the impact his travels and his philosophy had made. What had started as a personal quest for meaning had evolved into something much greater. He realized that he had found a new purpose: to walk the world, carrying only what fit in his backpack, and to give whatever he could of himself to those he met along the way. One crisp autumn morning, Victor arrived in a small coastal town called Harborview. The salty air and the cry of seagulls greeted him as he walked along the weathered boardwalk. He noticed a group of fishermen struggling with their nets and immediately offered to help. As they worked together, Victor shared his thoughts on finding joy in simple tasks and the importance of community. One of the fishermen, an older man named Theo, listened intently.
"That's quite a philosophy you've got there.
Theo remarked.
What led you to these ideas?"
Victor smiled, wiping his brow.
It's about traveling light through life, finding your way, and trusting in something greater than yourself.
Theo nodded thoughtfully.
Sounds like you found some wisdom on your travels. Care to share more over a cup of coffee?
Over steaming mugs at a local cafe, Victor shared his story with Theo and a few other curious locals who had gathered. He spoke of his journey, the people he'd met, and the transformations he'd witnessed. As he talked, he noticed a spark of recognition in their eyes.
As you may have surmised,
Theo said,
we've been struggling here in Harborview. The fishing industry isn't what it used to be, and many of our young people are leaving for the cities. But listening to you, I'm starting to think maybe we've been looking at things all wrong.
Inspired by Victor's philosophy and story, the townspeople began to discuss ways they could revitalize their community. They talked about focusing on what truly mattered: their connections to each other and to the sea that had sustained them for generations. Over the next few weeks, Victor stayed in Harborview, helping where he could and sharing his insights. He worked alongside the fishermen, taught life skills to children at the local school, and even helped organize a community festival celebrating the town's maritime heritage. As he did so, he saw the town begin to change. The sense of despair that had hung over Harborview like a fog began to lift. People started to come together, to help each other, to find joy in the simple things that made their town unique. One evening, as Victor sat on the pier watching the sunset, a young woman named Lydia approached him.
I am truly grateful to you.
She said, sitting down beside him.
Your ideas, your story, it's changed things around here. I was planning to leave for the city, but now I see there's so much we can do right here.
Victor smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest.
I'm glad.
He said softly.
But remember, the change didn't come from me. It was always within you and your community. My words just helped you see it.
As the weeks turned to months, Victor realized that his journey had taken on a new dimension. He was no longer just walking to escape his old life or to find himself. He was walking to connect, to inspire, to remind people of the joy and purpose that could be found in simplicity and community. His philosophy evolved too, gaining new insights that spoke of the wisdom he'd gained and the transformations he'd witnessed. It became not just a personal mantra, but a call to others to find their own path, to trust in their journey, and to embrace the power of simplicity and kindness. On his last night in Harborview, the town organized a farewell gathering on the beach. As the bonfire crackled and the stars twinkled overhead, Victor shared his thoughts on traveling light, finding one's way, trusting in a higher power, and not fretting about tomorrow. As he spoke, he looked around at the faces illuminated by the firelight. He saw hope, determination, and a newfound sense of purpose. He realized that his journey was no longer just about his own transformation. It had become a way of being, a new rhythm of life that carried him forward and touched the lives of those he met. And in giving to others, in sharing his story and his philosophy, Victor had found a deep, unshakable contentment within himself. He had discovered his true purpose to be a catalyst for change, a reminder of the simple truths that could transform lives and communities. As the gathering came to a close, Victor felt a profound sense of gratitude. He was no longer running from his old life. He was walking purposefully into a new one, carrying with him the stories, the connections, and the love he had found along the way. With joy and a mind brimming with new insights for his ever-evolving philosophy, Victor prepared for the next leg of his journey, eager to see where the road would lead him, and what new purpose each day would bring. To this day, Victor is still on his journey. No one knows where he'll go next or whom he'll meet. All he carries is a backpack, and all he gives is love. For him, that is enough. And for those who cross his path, it becomes a reminder that the truest wealth lies not in what you own, but in the joy you spread and the lives you touch along the way. As the seasons changed and years passed, Victor's journey took him across vast landscapes and through countless communities. His philosophy, which began as a simple idea of traveling lighter to discover and enjoy more, had evolved into a powerful message that resonated with people from all walks of life. One crisp autumn morning, Victor found himself walking along a winding mountain path. The leaves crunched beneath his feet, a symphony of reds and golds surrounding him. As he rounded a bend, he came across a young hiker sitting on a rock, looking lost and discouraged.
Mind if I join you?
Victor asked, setting down his backpack. The hiker, who introduced himself as Alex, nodded wearily.
I've been on the trail for weeks.
He said.
I thought this journey would help me find myself, but I feel more lost than ever.
Victor smiled knowingly and began to share the wisdom he had gained over the years. He spoke of traveling light, not just in terms of physical possessions, but in letting go of emotional burdens as well.
Each step you take can light the way.
Victor said, sharing one of his favorite insights.
But you have to be open to the lessons the journey offers.
As they talked, Alex's eyes began to brighten. By the time they parted ways, there was a new spring in the young hiker's step and a sense of purpose in his eyes. Months later, Victor found himself in a bustling city. The concrete jungle was a stark contrast to the natural landscapes he had grown accustomed to, but he knew there were always people in need of hope, no matter the setting. In a busy park, he set up and began to share his thoughts on simplicity and finding joy in the journey. His words, now rich with the experiences of his travels, drew a crowd. Among them was a stressed-looking businessman named Wyatt. As Victor spoke about finding joy in the journey and peace of mind in simplicity, he noticed Wyatt listening intently, a look of recognition dawning on his face. After the impromptu gathering, Wyatt approached Victor.
Your words.
He said, his voice thick with emotion.
It's like you're speaking the thoughts I've been too afraid to acknowledge. I've been chasing success, but I've lost sight of what truly matters.
Victor spent the afternoon talking with Wyatt, sharing stories of the people he'd met and the transformations he'd witnessed. By the end of their conversation, Wyatt had resolved to make changes in his life, to focus more on relationships and experiences rather than material success. As Victor continued his journey, he found that his philosophy was not just for him anymore. It had become a gift he could share with the world, a reminder of the simple truths that could transform lives. He shared it as he walked, spoke it in town squares, and wove it into conversations with strangers who soon became friends. Years passed and Victor's hair began to gray, but his spirit remained as vibrant as ever. His backpack, weathered by countless miles, still contained only the essentials. But the wealth of experiences, connections, and love he carried in his heart was immeasurable. One summer evening, as Victor sat by a campfire, a group of young travelers asked him to share his wisdom. As he spoke, he looked around at their faces, illuminated by the flickering flames. He saw in them the same spark of hope and desire for meaning that had started him on his own journey so many years ago. As he finished sharing his thoughts, one of the travelers asked,
"How do you keep going? Don't you ever want to settle down?"
Victor smiled, his eyes twinkling with the wisdom of countless miles.
The journey itself has become my home.
He replied,
And every person I meet, every life I touch, becomes a part of my ever-growing family.
He paused, then added,
Remember, the world will change when you change your mind. Each step you take can light the way to brighter skies and a brand new day.
As Victor prepared to set off the next morning, he realized that his journey had no end. It was a continuous cycle of giving and receiving, of learning and teaching. His philosophy, like his journey, was ever evolving, gaining new insights with each experience and touching more lives with every sharing. Full of gratitude and a mind open to new adventures, Victor shouldered his backpack once more. As he walked down the path, he realized that his original simple idea of traveling light to accomplish more had transformed him into a living example of the power of traveling light, finding one's way, and the joy found in simplicity and kindness. And so, Victor continues his journey, a living embodiment of the power of simplicity, kindness, and the transformative nature of a life lived with purpose. His message echoes through valleys and over mountains, across cities, and through quiet villages, a beacon of hope, and a reminder that the greatest journey of all is the one that leads us to our true selves and connects us to others along the way. The end.
Steps of change. Leave behind the weight you hold. Life's not found in silver or gold. Pack your dreams. Let go of fear. The world awaits. Your journey's clear. Travel light. Find your way. Feel the sun. Greet each day. Walk the path, straight and narrow. Trust in God, don't fret tomorrow. Things you own don't make you free. Give with joy, help others to see. When you give, you find your peace, joy grows, and worries cease. Travel light, find your way. Feel the sun, greet each day. Walk the path, straight and narrow. Trust in God, don't fret tomorrow. Set your eyes on stars above. Live with kindness, live with love. The less you carry, the more you'll find joy in the journey and peace of mind. Travel light, find your way. Feel the sun, greet each day. Walk the path, straight and narrow. Trust in God, don't fret tomorrow. Travel light, one step at a time. The world will change when you change your mind. Each step you take can light the way to brighter skies and a brand new day.
Leave behind the weight you hold. Life's not found in silver or gold. Pack your dreams, let go of fear. The world awaits, your journey's clear. Travel light, find your way. Feel the sun, greet each day. Walk the path, straight and narrow. Trust in God, don't fret tomorrow. Things you own don't make you free. Give with joy, help others to see. When you give, you find your peace. Joy grows and worries cease. Travel light, find your way. Feel the sun, greet each day. Walk the path, straight and narrow. Trust in God, don't fret tomorrow. Set your eyes on stars above. Live with kindness, live with love. The less you carry, the more you'll find joy in the journey, peace of mind. Travel light, find your way. Feel the sun, greet each day. Walk the path, straight and narrow. Trust in God, don't fret tomorrow. Travel light, one step at a time. The world will change when you change your mind. Each step you take can light the way to brighter skies and a brand new day.
That's all for now. Thanks for listening. Please visit opportuno.org. Thank you.